With all-stars like Julio Rodriguez, Corbin Carroll, and Gerrit Cole still struggling, what are Matt and I recommending you do with them? Well, we're talking that and much more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino, here as always with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Nate. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you do that for us. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, you hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel and gives notification every time we drop a new episode. And lastly, but most importantly to Matt and I, guys, join us on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth personalized experience through text messaging alerts right to your phone. And you can find the link to our Subtext wherever you're listening or watching. And if not, it's available on any of our social media platforms. FanDuel is today's sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down in sports. Stop sporting the way we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started today. And Matt, you know what? Tell me if you agree or not, but I think today this is a very, very pivotal episode. I think that everyone needs to listen thoroughly. I think trading is a big part of the game, and if you're not getting it done, we're going to help you get it done right. And we got some awesome names. We have some really awesome names. But as I said, Matt, you agree, disagree, your thoughts on everything? Maybe some thoughts on trading in general?
Yeah, I mean, so like this, we're kind of mid-season. A lot of players have either done a half season where it's been very poor and haven't been living up to it, and we have other guys that have been overperforming leading up to this point. So, it's a kind of like a balancing act. Okay, who are we buying in? Who's going to have a good second half and bounce back? Who is going to fall off the cliff coming the second half? And we kind of got a good name of guys that like a good list of guys where like I'm not really buying the second half kind of flow on a lot of guys, and that's both positively and negatively. So obviously we're going to start off like we do every show, and it's going to be the guys we're going to trade for, and then the second half of the show is always going to be trading away. There's a lot more to explain when it comes to trading for because we have to support the reason why. And with this first guy, you're going to need a hell of a lot of convincing, and that's Julio Rodriguez. Julio Rodriguez obviously hasn't lived up to his first round potential. Julio Rodriguez, everybody is probably pretty disappointed. We spent a top 5 pick, and if you listen to me, unfortunately, I was telling you to pick him at like number 3. So with Julio Rodriguez of the Seattle Mariners, it's time to make the and pull the trigger and try and get him off somebody's roster. Now in Dynasty or Keeper Leagues, it's going to be very challenging. Maybe not so much in Keeper Leagues, but in Dynasty, 100%. It is going to be challenging, but ultimately in redraft and keeper leagues, you might be able to sneak one past the goalie, but you're also taking on risk. But let me explain why I say he needs to be traded for. And here is one of the biggest reasons. Okay. His X batting average is actually 275, where he's really just touting a 247. His slug is at a 435, which is actually pretty decent. His average exit velocity is about a 91.2 mile per hour, which is much harder than a guy like Luis Robert. That his average exit velocity is about 89.5. His bat speed is super elite. He is barreling the ball at a pretty average pace, which we all know that's going to change. And he's hitting the ball consistently hard. 47% of the time he makes contact with the ball, he is creating hard contact. These are all good signs of better times to come. Now, obviously, the launch angle sweet spot hasn't really been there. He's chasing, he's whiffing, he's striking out. He's not really walking. Now, that is more of the last 4 are kind of more of like in your head kind of type things. He just needs to make better decisions. And with the sweet spot, that could change in a couple of minutes, right? The barrel is almost there. If that could shift a couple points, he gets under the barrel a bit more. He can start causing some more line drives. Things could kind of produce more, and then we're going to start seeing more counting stats in total for Julio Rodriguez. So that's why I said, hey, there is better days to come. Then you look at his history, right? And this is kind of where it's more built in. Now, Last year was disappointing because it was more like the first 2 months versus the whole half. Actually, it kind of was. It was all the way to June. You know, April he was batting 239. May he kind of ticked it up a little bit at 252, and then in June he was batting a terrible, terrible 220. Now, obviously, this year Julio is batting a 247, which is exactly where he 2% less than he left off last year's first half. On top of that, he had about 7 home runs, which is about 5 less than he normally has, 6 less than he normally had from last year. Now, in the second half of last year, he put up 19 home runs. He also went off and went crazy and had a 308 batting average, finishing the year with a 275 batting average. So, what does this tell you? Why are we telling you to buy this after everything? If you still haven't gotten the point, obviously, just based off of his history, Julio Rodriguez is going to have an amazing, amazing second half. And with teams being so frustrated and probably needing to make a move and make a push to actually have a playoff appearance this year, Julio Rodriguez truly needs to be, traded for now. You might think I'm crazy. You might be that Julio owner that's thinking I can't give away him for anything. But Julio also carries value. You'll be able to get about 65 cents on the dollar and be able to go ahead and get it. And that's also the going rate, and I'll pay it. There's trades out there you could totally get it done. Julio Rodriguez needs to be traded for immediately and get it done.
Yeah, man, I did a great job breaking him down. They're not really going to add too much besides, as you broke down all the underlying stuff, even the stuff that he's not doing well. He didn't do it well last year or in previous year. So all the stuff that he is doing well, he always has done well. The statistical profile looks the same as it always has. There's nothing different, good or bad. So I love to see that. And then even as I break it down month by month for his whole career, Matt, you spoke about last year, but his whole career, Julio Rodriguez gets hot in the second half. In July, he hits 282 in his career across 44 games. Hits 350 in August across 40 games in his career. 48 games, September, October, he hits 290 with a lot of power, a lot of steals coming this summer, to a park near you with Julio Rodriguez. But let's talk about another young budding star, right? Let's talk some Corbin Carroll, outfielder, Arizona Diamondbacks. And I think this one I'm a little bit more nervous on. If we were, talking about Worryometer, it'd probably be a lot higher than I'd be on Julio Rodriguez. Corbin Carroll on the year through 305 at-bats. It's 47 runs, only 2 homers, 14 steals, and a 213 batting average. And, this is somebody, when I start looking at the underlying stuff, it doesn't look like it did last year, and it makes me kind of nervous. The underlying stuff when it comes to batting average looks really bad. The exit velocity isn't good. Bat speed looks good, not barreling it up, not hitting it hard. He's not swinging and missing, not striking out a lot, walking a lot, but that's still not even helping the batting average. So if he's doing all that stuff at a very good pace right now and he's only hitting 213, what happens if that stuff goes bad at all? It just really looks like, Corbin Carroll is not somebody I'm like crazy buying in on, but I'm looking for a deal, right? I'm looking to spend 60 cents on the dollar on a Corbin Carroll right now on the hopes that the monster that he was last season and the prospect pedigree can play out, good for him in the second half. I just don't like the fact that he's 23 years old. Big shoulder issues last year, especially towards the end of the season. I don't know if those are lingering. I don't know if he's trying to play it through. I wouldn't be shocked if we see Corbin Carroll struggle the rest of the year and we hear, something of the sorts, he's going to get shoulder surgery in the offseason. But until we see that, like I said, if I can get him on 60 cents on the dollar, the prospect pedigree, the age, and, who Corbin Carroll is, I still am going to go out there and try and get him in a deal.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the deal, right? His underlying stats are showing that he still has the plate discipline. He's good behind the plate. It's just all the other things that are kind of scary. I don't know if we see a shoulder surgery because there hasn't been even an ounce of it mentioned this year. It was more of towards the end of the season. I just think he's just a product of a sophomore slump. And when guys have sophomore slumps after having a season like he did, it's really devastating. I think you might be able to, in a redraft league, pay 30 cents on the dollar. Because teams are frustrated, really frustrated. I have people in the comments right now, and take it with a grain of salt or whatever, but the overreaction of the general populace of fantasy community is key. And if people are overreacting and not having a being patient with their first round picks that are struggling, are the ones that you need to take advantage of. And with that, like I said, you might be able to get it. If people are talking about dropping him, float one of the guys we're talking about later and try and go and acquire Corbin Carroll. But we have a whole bunch of names coming up. What to do with Gerrit Cole? Should you go after Luis Castillo? And is Hunter Brown actually somebody worth trading for or away? We'll be right back after this.
I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to, unfortunately, especially after the Celtics have won those NBA finals. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, while we still have baseball rocking and rolling, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. And like I said, there's so many good bets that FanDuel is offering when it comes to the MLB, and it's a prime time to do this as you're watching those baseball games this summer. So while you're doing that, head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch over to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And then, guys, we're once again introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on the Subtext platform, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. As the season continues to unfold, you can rely on Matt and I for dynamic content. Get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings, instant call-up notifications, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of your fantasy league by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where the path to your victories begin. Subscribe now and elevate your fantasy baseball experience to a new level. Woo! And that is certainly a lot for me, my brother Matt. I'm going to pass this next guy off to you, even though it is one of our New York Yankees.
Yeah, thank you. You did a fantastic job. And hello, Gerrit Cole. And what do we do with you? Right now, there's not enough statistical background for me to say, hey, what is actually going on with him yet? But what I can tell you is, being a Yankee fan and watching the 3 starts he had, Cole looks fine. He just had a couple of tough matchups, obviously a couple little mistakes, kind of brushing off the rust and stuff. But Cole's hitting velocity that we want to see. Some pitches are ticking up to 98. He's averaging about a 95.3 miles per hour on that fastball. Those are all good things you want to see. Cole was able to avoid TJ and whatnot. So I want to say that, hey, let's go out there and try and acquire him. Now, if a team has held him all year round, you're going to be a little hard to get him, especially after that last start. But might be able to go and scoop him up for about like 75 cents on the dollar. He would have been like a first round pick or early second round pick in most leagues. So Gerrit Cole is still worth 75 cents on the dollar, especially if you're truly struggling with pitching. Now, the other side of this coin is ultimately, yes, is there a possibility they could shut him down tomorrow and his elbow just completely snapped in two and there goes his tendon? Yes, absolutely. So this comes with a lot of risk. And when you try and negotiate essentially the trade, you throw that in there and you say, hey man, I need you to go ahead and just see the risk on my side that I'm taking, see the risk that you're carrying. Let's try and make a trade here and try to talk him down as much as you can and try and walk away with him on it. There's a couple guys on this list that you'll probably be able to trade for him that I won't lose sleep over trading. So I would try and get them in there for Gerrit Cole.
Yeah, you know what the thing is, Matt? I think people forget just how good Gerrit Cole was last year. Gerrit Cole, once again, starting pitcher, New York Yankees, 33 starts last year, 2.63 ERA, 209 innings, 222 strikeouts, and an 0.98 WHIP. We know who Gerrit Cole is. This is his spring training. I've heard people talking about Gerrit Cole like he's not a top 15 pitcher the rest of the way if healthy. Gerrit Cole hasn't really shown a crazy injury history, if much at all, throughout his career. Maybe a few minor things here and there, but has consistently been able to pitch 200 innings plus for multiple times in his career, including the last 2 years, 200 innings, and then in 2021 he was at 181. So we know he's got it in the arm. I think we're going to look back at 2, 3, even 4 weeks from now at this episode particularly. Somebody mark it down. Gerrit Cole's just going to be fine. He's going to be a top 10, if not even better starting pitcher the rest of the way. So I think if you can pay, if you could find a team in your league that has Gerrit Cole where he has an abundance of pitching, or they have an abundance of pitching just because of how good starting pitching has been this year, go out there and get it before, starting pitching really starts to fall apart. We're starting to see it a little bit, but I think, with the ball starting to move more in the summer, starting to fly, hotter air, that starting pitching is not going to be as good as it has been this year. And Gerrit Cole is somebody we know we can rely on. This is my big trade target. Out of all the guys we're talking about today, this is my big go out and get him. Before he turns into the Gerrit Cole we all know and love, an absolute dominant ace starting pitcher for all fantasy baseball teams. But let's keep things pushing. We got another really good starting pitcher, maybe not as Gerrit Cole, but good as Gerrit Cole, but definitely a good secondary option to fall back on if you can't get Gerrit Cole. Aim for Luis Castillo, starting pitcher, Seattle Mariners. It's been an odd year for Luis Castillo, somebody I know I had well within my top 10 starting pitchers this year. When we were just talking about how good starting pitchers has been, you would think, oh, Luis Castillo's just been dominant, right? Not so much. 18 starts for Luis Castillo this year, 3.87 ERA, 104 innings, only 103 strikeouts, and a 1.21 whip. And that comes from a guy last year that had a 3.3 ERA, 197 innings, 219 strikeouts, and a 1.09 whip. And he had very similar numbers that were actually a little bit better in 2022, just less innings. Luis Castillo's a tough case. He pitches in a really good park. I like the underlying stuff. It doesn't look absolutely atrocious for Luis Castillo, especially when it comes to how his pitches are moving. I really like to see that. The velocity's there. He's getting chases. He's getting whiffs. There's a couple things. He's getting hit kind of hard. He's not getting as many ground balls as you would like to see. And the pitch mix is kind of still the same as last year. And even when I look at the barrels, the hard hits, and the ground ball stuff kind of looks the same as it did last year. So I'm not super worried. This is another guy that has shown his whole career that he's been very, very good. Honestly, it looks like it's his sinker and his changeup that are getting really hit bad. They're both getting hit over a 300 clip. And if he can just get those to even out, even to last year where, the sinker was getting hit at a 240 clip and the changeup was hitting at a 280 clip, I think if Luis Castillo can figure those things out, we're going to see him, another guy going to the summer that we can rely on. Unlike some of these other starting pitchers that I think are really going to fall off a cliff, I think Castillo is going to be a good one for us.
Yeah, I mean, with Castillo, it's like one of two things, right? Like usually not one of two things. It's usually a different tale, right? He usually has a fantastic first half and then kind of falls off in the second half. It's happened the last 2 years, funny enough, right? So you look at last year and going into the All-Star break, he had a 2.85 ERA and that was through 107 innings pitched and he had 117 strikeouts. The second half comes, he pitches 89 innings. He still has a strikeout ratio of 102, 102 strikeouts, but he had a 3.91 ERA. So that second half was actually really ugly. And then you go back to 22, where he had a great ERA, right, for the season numbers, where he had a 2.99 ERA. But you look at like the first half, second half splits, and you're just like, okay, well, the first half, I apologize, he had a 2.77 ERA. And then the second half, he had a 3.24 ERA. Now, that isn't like falling completely off a cliff, but I guarantee there was a really bad month in there. I don't have it right in front of me, but look, he's a second half pitcher. He's a first half pitcher. Now, let's just hope for our all intents and purposes, and the whole point of this episode is Castillo is worth worth trading for. So, like personally, there's a guy on this list that we're going to talk about next that I think we're going to have a difference of opinion of whether we should trade for or away. And you'll find out about that right after this. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Exploring my skills on Prize Picks this season adds an extra layer of excitement to daily fantasy sports, which is a few taps you can transform $10 into $1,000 easily. PrizePicks is incredibly user-friendly. You can make your selections, submit your entries in less than 60 seconds. And as the host of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, I might as well give you some picks to get you started with. Opt for Josh Lowe to have higher than zero point 0.5 total bases in his next start. And opt for Pete Alonso to have higher than 0.5 home runs in his next game. And opt for Bryce Turang to have higher than 0.5 stolen bases in his next game. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit match up to $100 again. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. Here at Locked On Fantasy Baseball, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's offseason, draft, spring training, or playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round, unfortunately? Collection season. Just because the tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your properties. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and A+ rating at Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their customers over $1 billion with a B tax dollars in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season, which, yes, you do need to pay those taxes. You need help filing that correctly. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked on. See the link in the description below. And all right, so I think, Dom, I will let you start off on the side. If you can't kind of project how this show goes, if you're new, I'm going to take a sip of the good old Haterade and I'll wait back and see.
Okay, so I'm actually interested to hear Matt's take on this one as well. So we're talking some Hunter Brown. And if you're not familiar with Hunter Brown, he was top pitching prospect, a couple years back, Houston Astros, and just reminded me a lot of Justin Verlander, especially when it came to big body boy, 6'2", 220. Had a very similar release to Justin Verlander, and Verlander was there as Brown was coming up. Kind of got to learn from Verlander, and I think he had rubbed off a lot on him. And Hunter Brown had a very, very successful, stretch in 2022. It was an 0.89 ERA. It was only 20 innings, 22 strikeouts, 108 whip, but it has been very good in the minors as well. Numbers this year look very, very bad so far. On total, it's 16 starts, 4.07 ERA, 86 innings, 94 strikeouts, a 1.33 whip. But I want to focus on Hunter Brown's last 10 starts, right? Hunter Brown's last 10 starts, 57 innings, 65 strikeouts, a 1 whip, 2.20 ERA, a 3.5 FIP, and batters are hitting 197 against him during that time. I think Hunter Brown is starting to figure it out. Not everybody, I say this all the time. It's my thing with prospects. We were spoiled. If you played fantasy baseball the last 5 years, we were 6 years, we've been spoiled. Tatis, Acuna, Soto, they all come up and they're all monsters, right? Even a guy like Spencer Strider, just comes out of nowhere, monstrous. Hunter Brown, I think, is taking a little bit to figure it out. He just had some really good starts of late, and I think he's going to be able to keep it rocking and rolling. I think he can go out there and get him dirt cheap right now, especially if his owner hasn't been paying attention to the stretch that he's been on and just looks at the base stats and it's like, okay, he hasn't really been that good. I think you can get him 50 cents on the dollar, get him for very, very cheap right now, and I think Hunter Brown is somebody that going into next year, top 40 starting pitcher, maybe. I think there's a lot of upside here. I'm buying it.
Hold on, let me do this.
Okay, all right. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear Matt's side of this.
I just drank it dry. So when it comes to Hunter Brown, for me, I feel the polar opposite. I feel like this is super inflated. I think he's had just a great 10 games. And look, we talk about last year's numbers, and you start looking at what what he did last year in certain months was absolute brilliance. In April, he had a 3.20 ERA, and in June, he had a 2.30 ERA. But then you look at May, July, August, September, October. Well, in August, he had a 4.33 ERA, 4.14 ERA, and a 4.20 ERA in May. Finished off the season strong with a 2.17 in September, October. But ultimately, he was all over the place. And a lot of the stats that we're seeing, in 2024 versus 2023, even in the, super advanced statistics, are kind of the same. And also, too, it kind of tells me, hey, this isn't real. You look at his fastball and the movement on that, it's terrible. His breaking balls, not moving great. It's just his off-speed pitches that are actually moving great. So with a guy that is relying on his fastball for a good amount of time, right? Because he throws that 38% of the time, and his fastball is just completely straight at this point, is basically what the stats are telling me. He's going to bounce back to the terribleness that we saw earlier in the season. So I'm not buying this whatsoever. I'm actually going to take this 10-game stretch, and I'm going to try and go get 75, 85% on the dollar, because I'm going to sell high before it falls flat under him. So Hunter Brown, I think, needs to be traded away and capitalize on whatever value he actually carries, because I don't see this 10-game stretch continuing unless we start seeing some serious increases on his off-speed pitches and his fastball, which I don't foresee happening. You even look at what he did last year with his fastball, and it was pin straight. His breaking ball pin straight, and his off-speed pitches were moving even less than it is this year. So Hunter Brown hasn't really made any improvements. He's just having a really good month. I guess if you want a rebuttal, let me know. If not, we can go.
I'll say, when you do look at the underlying stuff from last year to this year, there definitely are improvements. He's not getting hit as hard, getting more ground balls. There is stuff to like, and in a young guy with the prospect pedigree of a Hunter Brown, I think we give him a chance. And like I said, if we can get him cheap, I'm not paying a full price or anywhere near it. Like I said, if you could pay 50, maybe 60 cents on the dollar, I'm in on it there, because there is stuff that I think to buy in on. But I think we definitely got to keep things pushing.
Yeah. All right. So this next guy here is Seth Lugo. I don't know how he's having such an amazing season, but he is. And you know what? I look at everything, right, and I'm looking at advanced stats first. He has fantastic movement on his fastball and his breaking ball. Even his off-speed pitches are moving at a pretty decent rate. But he throws a 92 mile per hour fastball. He's giving up exit velocity of 88.8 miles per hour, which at another 0.2% and a 2.2 miles, and he's now in the red on this. And that's not great. Guys aren't chasing. He's not creating the whiffs. He's not creating ground balls. He's giving up a hard hit about 38% of the time, which is bad. He's allowing guys to barrel up. All this stuff screams that we're going to see a very, very poor second half. This isn't the Cole Reagans effect. This is age 34 season, where Seth Lugo isn't going to just come out of nowhere and be fantastic and win a Cy Young. That's not happening. So trade now. They're going to see the big 7 next to his name. Just capitalize and sell high now.
Yeah, man, great take on Seth Lugo. I don't really have too much to add, except this is a guy, we know who he is, we know who he's been throughout his career. He's always been a solid pitcher, and has never been an absolute monster, dominant ace like he's been. I will say this, I'll give myself a little bit of a pat on the back. I had Seth Lugo as like a top 60-ish starting pitcher, maybe even a little higher than that coming into the year. So if you did listen to me and you drafted him, you're making out like a bandit right now. So, you could ride the wave with him. I think he'll be decent the rest of the way, but he will not be, an absolute dominant ace for the rest of the season. So if you could trade him for that, go out there and get it. Let's move on to this next guy. Let's talk some Ronal Blanco, through the no-hitter earlier in the year. Once again, starting pitcher for the Houston Astros. I don't think he's going to be this good the rest of the way. I'm not buying the age 30 breakout. He's still been useful, this season with some solid starts down the stretch here. But, not going to be, a 2.49 ERA the rest of the way. He's, got a 4.43 FIP right now, fielding independent pitching. That is, it's an ERA indicator. I think he's going to be a lot closer to that. He's not even a K per 9 guy. Last year had a 1.4 whip, had a 1.8 whip the year before that. Don't think the control is going to keep going in the positive direction either, even though the underlying stuff does look decent for him. Just once again, can't buy an age 30 breakout, for Ronal Blanco.
Yeah, and on top of that, he really can't even buy some movement on his fastball, so or even some velocity. So Ronal Blanco, I think, is just going to be one of those waiver wire darlings that we all remember trading away halfway through and getting the best value humanly can off a guy you got for free like week 2. So Ronal Blanco, I think, needs to be moved. I think we should. I think we could probably move on to this last guy and kind of just finish it out
Okay.
here. Let's talk about Ronaldo Lopez, another guy, that I'm not really buying, and it's more of just like the age than anything else. The dude is kind of grandpa when it comes to breakout season for him, and on top of that, he really hasn't been a starter in quite some time too. So I can't understand where the success is coming from. He hasn't been a starter since 2021, where he had 9 actual starts. This is the most starts he's had since 2021. And I just I mean, yeah, you could probably make the argument he hasn't had too many miles on that shoulder or arm, but at the same time, Lopez just isn't a guy that I feel comfortable having as my starting pitcher and relying on him in and out. I think that right now he is like the perfect sell high candidate because we all know things are just going to get worse. Yes, he has a great fastball, but his xERA is really like a 3.98 versus this 1.7 ERA that he's posting right now. Yes, he's getting guys to somewhat chase and causing somewhat of a whiff and striking out guys, but he's giving up hard contact at a good on 41% of the time. He's allowing guys to barrel up. He's not creating ground balls. His average exit velocity is 89.2 miles per hour. Like, and his off-speed pitches aren't getting any movement. Ronaldo Lopez just needs to be traded right now and just take advantage of the fact that, hey, he has that big high ranking next to his name and just sell him for as much as you humanly can. Dom, do you got anything, or are we getting out of here?
Just that Ronaldo Lopez is on the Atlanta Braves. In case you guys forgot, the thing is, there's a lot of upside there. I'm moving a starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves. Like Ronaldo Lopez, that has that value there. As far as not only the stats but the team, there's win potential there. I'm not buying into it. I think you can easily move him right now. Before the other shoe falls off, and then the innings limit. There's got to be an innings limit. He pitched 66 innings last year, transitioning to a starter. I don't see him getting more than 140. I think that's going to be on
If
the
that.
high end for Ronaldo Lopez. So, get him off your team now. But with that being said, guys, thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And once again, shout out to our everydayers and new listeners. But guys, until tomorrow, see ya.
Peace.